Erotic store employees, what are some interesting stories / excuses people have given when buying toys / equipment? NSFW. I had a guy who would come in once every 2 weeks or so. He would buy around 10 over 20 movies and not much else. At least one of the movies would always be a one from our gay section, which always prompted him to explain he was from a state where you couldn't buy porn legally, so he would buy it for multiple friends, one of which happened to be gay. I didn't really care and always just said something like that's nice. The best sale I ever had was a man who bought a few movies, a couple flashlights, and a life-sized fake A. His ticket came to about $1,300. It was right at the end of the night. I helped him carry it to his car. Yes, the ass was that big, included thighs and part of torso. He left and I closed up for the night. The next day my manager asked about the sale, and I told him the story. He informed me the man called and said he bought a couple movies, and that was it, and demanded the rest of the charges be removed from his card. He said it was probably a bad case of buyer's remorse. I still got my commission and never heard about it again. Long post. One sticks out in my mind. We had a woman in her 60s to 70s that came in and bought an excessive amount of DVDs. They were all different kinds too. Hetero, homo, fetish, everything. I was so caught off guard I started talking to her about free porn sites, but she said her son prefers DVDs. I must have given her an odd look, so she elaborated and said her son was mentally challenged and had been sexually inappropriate behaviors in the past, so she bought him the movies and no more incidents. I didn't believe her until she came back in a week later with her son. I spent the next 2 years seeing them every 2 weeks or so. She started coming in and handing me cash and would go sit in the car while he made his selections. He was nonverbal and I'd have to help him pick out the movies and filter for anything that looked particularly aggressive per her request to me. I eventually started keeping DVDs to the side for him and would give him the free promotional DVDs and sample lubes we'd get. I used to work at an adult novelty store. We sold all sorts of things from SFW stuff like jewelry and masks to NSFW stuff like 2-foot-long double-sided dongs. Most folks didn't find the need to make an excuse for what they were buying. There were 3 types of customers. We would have the regulars, usually men in their 60s or older, who would come in for a few DVDs and some enhancement pills. They don't talk much, in and out. We would get the college kids in for a laugh. They'd wander around the store for an hour touching everything and usually leave without buying anything. If they did buy, it was always a gag gift. Then there were the professionals, either performing drag queens, strippers or professional dominatrixes. They were my favorites. They were kind, polite, and always knew exactly what they wanted. My first wife used to sell sex toys. She'd go to conventions with other sex toy sellers and distributors. One of the sellers had a market surrounded by 3 colleges, one of them Ivy League. She said that she had so many college-age women who didn't know how anything worked down there that she started carrying pamphlets for Planned Parenthood. So this is your body, 12 facts about your cycle, and other honest-to-goodness educational materials. Women would ask her medical questions and she'd have to explain what a gynecologist was for. Honey, I just sell glowing condoms and dildos shaped like tentacled dinosaurs. You need to ask a real medical professional these questions. And this was in 2009. Not a worker, but a customer. I wandered into one and asked for the most embarrassing, inappropriate gag gift to give to a guy at his bachelor's party. Many years ago somebody told me that you could buy an inflatable sheep at those stores, so I was hoping to find something like that in there, or maybe a horse rear you could screw, or the world's smallest penis pump. The cashier looked at me very strangely / suspiciously and said they didn't sell anything like that. I don't think she believed it was a gag gift. Not me, but a buddy of mine worked at a smut shop for a few years a long time ago. He's got tons of stories, but my favorite one was when he was working and this older guy came to buy a bunch of gay porn and rent some gay videos. I told you it was a long time ago. After the guy paid, he left and went home, called the store, and asked for my friend by description. My buddy answered, and the guy said he'd give him $40 for his underwear. I asked him, well, what the hell did you do? I stripped those bastards off in the bathroom, threw them in a plastic bag, and gave them to that idiot for $40. He never saw the guy again, and he has some more awesome stories about other people, but I always liked this one. This is not me, but it's a story I read way back in the olden days, before even web-based message boards existed, and you used email message boards. So, dude worked at a smaller video rental store back in the day, where they didn't have enough staff to have someone watching just the adult section, which was separated off into its own restricted room. They had had a lot of trouble with people going in there, seeing that they were alone, and basically wanking it to the porno box covers, so they installed a security camera and an intercom/PA system so that whoever was working the front could keep an eye on things and tell people to knock it off if they tried anything funny. Well, one day, our dude was working the front when he caught somebody acting suspicious on the porn cam. When pervert looked around and started reaching into his pants, employee hit the PA button and yelled, "Put it down." Pervert jumped out of his skin when suddenly the voice of God rang out of nowhere telling him to put the porno down, and he went tearing out of there like a scalded dog. Customer here had an awkward conversation with the poor gal behind the counter. I was looking for a good male massager, but wanted to know if she had any good recommendations. I was previously ripped off through some recommendations online that turned out to be cheap Chinese pieces of junk. The product page is artificially bolstered by botnets and fake reviews. The most pleasure the device gave me was the comedy gold of its English instruction booklet. So I wanted a human's perspective, somebody who actually handles these kinds of things on the daily, something that won't die after a month. I trust your judgment over internet reviews. Tried a couple recommended products online and got burned both times. Oh wow, she reels in surprise. I'm sorry to hear that. Did you have to see a doctor? If there's one thing I love about sex shop workers, they have a fantastic way to not make me feel like the most awkward person in the room. Bless her heart. I was tempted to leave them a 5-star Google Guides review using my real email address to really emphasize how grateful I was. I've got a story that sort of fits this thread. At an auto shop in a sketchy neighborhood, one of my employees used to leave his windows down all day when parked on the street despite repeated warnings. No idea how he never lost his radio. I finally came up with a diabolical plan to rid him of this habit before he suffered a theft and passive-aggressively blamed the workplace. Tasked my manager with stopping at an erotic store right along her way with purchasing the cheapest blow-up doll you sell for a prank. Got a real beauty for under $20 with printed on fishnets and an undignified looking mouth. Next afternoon, I poked an air hose out the side of the building and blew her up, then went to carry her across the street through a bunch of cars waiting at the signal. Everyone looked on with interest and amusement as I pantomimed and settled her into the driver's seat of his car. Then I went back in and with mock seriousness said, "Monty, there's a lady in your car." He already suspected something fishy, so he wandered out with no special urgency in his step as everyone else followed to watch. It was hilarious watching him try to deflate her as quickly as possible, squeezing and pushing in variants of spooning and the Heimlich maneuver, while another wave of signal waiters enjoyed the spectacle. Then he did the march of shame back, trying to look angry with me without success. He never did leave his car open and unlocked again, though. I think I may have actually embarrassed the clerk last time I went down to ye old romantics. I needed a new vibrator because mine had died like 6 months ago. I was deliberating trying something different for like 10 minutes before I said fuck it and got the same model I liked. I got up to the register and she checked it all out and offered to me to test it myself. "Oh no, I'm good. I've owned this model before," I said as she put her own hand against the surface and immediately had an oast expression. The low setting is the only one I use, but some people used to really weak vibrations are probably shocked by it. She asked if anything else had piqued my interest. I said kinda. I think I'm just kinda happy with this one though. My old one lasted 2 years before the motor burned out. She was clearly holding and giggles and definitely laughed as she offered me my receipt and was red in the cheeks. Like, "Miss Lady, why are you working in a sex shop if comments of that caliber are enough to make you snort?" I've worked at a sex shop for the last 5 years. If the customer feels the need to make an excuse for what they're buying, it's rarely an interesting one. Usually they say it's a gag gift, but some of the bigger dildos are over $100 US, so it would be a lot of money to spend for a gag. I always tell them once they pay for it, I could really care less what they do with it. The one time I did care was when a really weird guy came in saying he wanted a huge butt plug to ape his wife with because he had caught her drinking. I told him I wouldn't sell him anything if I thought he was going to hurt someone with it, and he left. I like to pride myself on making the customer feel as comfortable as possible. I would never shame someone for their kink. First, because I'm not an asshole, but also because that's just going to cost me sales. So whatever the customer is looking for, I'm here for it. Let's talk about it. You into pegging? Great. I'll give you 20% off if you get a toy with the strap on. You into water sports? Why not? We have open mouth gags and this cool little stool with an opening so she can squat right over you and let it fly. You like to wear panties and lingerie? Remember to go a size up for women's wear. If you're normally a medium, get a large. If you're normally a small, get a medium ECT. You need a good vibrator? 3 things you want to look out for are: is it silicone? Is it rechargeable? Does it have a warranty? A good clit rocket like that will run about $50 and up, but you don't need to spend more than $80. I run a shame-free environment when I'm working. One day my girlfriend and I were horny, and our fingers could only do so much. Since I had recently moved to a new state, I wasn't quite as familiar with the area and I didn't know by memory where the nearest adult store would be located. We relied on my Maps app to take us to our destination. However, it didn't take us to a place where we could buy as many dildos as we could ever want. It instead told me to go into a freaking military base. I ended up pulling up to the gate area where some guys in camo asked us if we had a visitor's pass. I was honest with him and told him I have no idea where I am. I'm just following my Maps program and it told me to come here. The young man then asked me where I was going. I tried to respond with a vague answer, but he kept persisting. I'm a bit too awkward to tell this dude where 2 young lesbians were trying to go. Eventually he asked, "Are you looking for the arts and crafts place nearby?" We said yes, and that answer was good enough for him. We turned around and found the right place, which was closed anyways. Not an employee, but a customer. I have a deformity where I was born without a cervix and a malformed uterus, which resulted in my vagina being more like a pouch that needs to be expanded through dilators and such. My BF and I went to a blue boutique sex shop, of course. Dunno if it's only here in my state or not, to look around. We go in the section with all the toys and such, and since it was dead, the lady in charge, maybe mid-20s, and I have a conversation with me asking what she'd recommend for someone with my deformity, because if I'm gonna sit for 30 minutes with something up my hoo-ha, I wanna at least enjoy it a little. My doctors have rarely seen this deformity and didn't give nearly as much info for sex as this lady did, though I wasn't mainly focused on sex, since I was single at the time, so she gave me advice, at least 20 minutes of foreplay, oh boy, and showed me a vibrator that had different vibration patterns and the vibrations were soft, so it wouldn't hurt me more than I already would be forcing myself to expand down there. We apologized for the weird conversation, and she said this hadn't actually been the first time she has had to talk with ladies with small/deformed vags. Sorry if this isn't so interesting, but it was to me, since so little people have heard of this deformity.